welcome back to the Better Men, Better Ball Player podcast. I'm your host, Trey Cobb. I want to thank you for joining us here in our 63rd episode, where we get a chance to talk to Rob Younce. Coach Younce is the current assistant coach at Greenbrier Christian Academy, where they had just won the Division II state championship in Virginia. Prior to losing their season last year due to COVID, in 2019, they lost in state final, which was Coach Younce's first season with them. And the season before that, they were under 500. So since they've come on, they've had a lot of success. And through the historically, and like Coach talks about in our talk, is traditionally they are been very successful. But the past 3 years, they've really turned it on, and Rob's brought some great success there. Coach Younce has also been a long-time coach with Canes Baseball, the national-known organization in travel baseball, and has coached all levels with them. And as of right now, he's coaching the 14U national team as their hitting and infield coach, which is and also what he does with Greenbrier. He's coached at every level, been the former scouting director for the organization, was also an associate scout with the Philadelphia Phillies, and has created Coastal Virginia baseball. Coach Younce played at the Naval Academy, played at Old Dominion, been in the game for a while. Like we joke about, he's had a lot of experience, but it's a great experience, and he's learned a lot and learned some valuable lessons, and he's changed for the better and continues to get better. And like he talks about, he's a continuous learner, always striving to push himself, and been really fortunate that we got together this year, came into my life, and it was very positive. And we spent some good time together, and always enjoying conversation. So, and I think you'll hear that in this. And Rob's a great guy to talk to, and continues to learn, and is just a dude. So again, I appreciate him and appreciate the time he took out for tonight, and hope you enjoy this conversation. So here he is, Coach Rob Younce.
Well, it was a fun. It turns out it's kind of a funny story. Like when I first asked him, he was the head coach. He was like, "We can try the fall and see what that's like." And I'm like, "No, I don't want to coach my nephews. I'm not interested in that. Like my one nephew is a catcher. My other nephew, who's graduating next year, is a catcher. So they weren't in my. I just said I just want middle infielder or infielders and possibly hitters if you want to relinquish some of that. So yeah, I stayed away from those two. So he gave me a little tryout, so to speak, and then and that went well. So brought me on staff, which was good.
That's awesome. And then this year you managed state championship, buddy. Congratulations, man.
Thanks, man. That. There's so many things, and there were so many. There's so many intimate and fun little details inside of there. My nephew was our starting catcher. He did not play a defensive inning all year. He had shoulder issues. Actually, just went in and was supposed to have surgery. That the doctor had told him it was a labrum issue. So just had surgery a couple of days ago. They got in there and found out there isn't a labrum issue, that there was a Bennett's lesion that was in there, which is a calcification, which eventually causes a labrum issue. But he was our starting catcher, and he did not play a defensive inning all year. Our number 2 guy was down with all sorts of injuries pitching wise. So we brought in one of our guys who's been with us, but hadn't caught a varsity game yet. He stepped up and did a phenomenal job. We had a lot of young guys that contributed. We had arms that contributed, some guys that transferred in that were kind of not valued at the public school they were at. And they came in, one of them, Nico Angrisani, came in and, hit about 400 for us, which was great. We hit 382 as a team. So it was really pretty cool. It was a great year in that regard, but a lot of guys stepped up. So that's one of the reasons why the state championship was so special. because it was kind of like picking a lock, or when you turn a lock and all the tumblers have to fall into place. Well, that's what happened. And when, it wasn't one or two guys that were stepping up and carrying us all year, it was like everybody up and down the lineup was contributing, which is really, really cool. Some guys that are going to go on and play in college, my nephew, we have a Western Carolina commit. We have a big D2 guy with UNC Pembroke.
Nice.
He was a big bat for us all year. And we have an Averett commit who actually Division III guy who really he hit the game-winning double in the championship game. I mean, it wasn't just one person. It was everybody up and down the lineup just doing their jobs. And they really, really embrace that, which is super, super cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you think it's like, based on this last 3 years, did you see like this coming? Do you see like, is this a combination of a couple things, like the way that the kind of culture has kind of changed in the past 3 years?
Yeah, it's funny because our head coach, Pat Nichols, has been at Greenbrier for a long time. He's a longtime assistant. He was a player, caught AAA with the Nationals. When he finished, he started coaching there, and then he got the head coaching job. When I first started, I wanted our kids, one of the things I told our kids is you win at everything. You win at going to get foul balls. You beat the other team at getting foul balls. And Pat kind of pushed back at first, and he looked at me. He's like, what are we doing? Why are we sprinting after foul balls? Why are we doing that? And we started seeing the guys starting to get a little bit more competitive. So it was actually pretty cool when their guys on deck and there's a foul ball over on their side and our guys are sprinting over to get it. Our guys are starting to take pride in a lot of things. And not that they didn't have pride before, not that they weren't, pumped up to be there, but they started seeing, well, gosh, if I can beat him to go get a foul ball, I can probably beat him in the game, even if we're not as talented. So a lot of those things that we put in, and Pat and I started talking about it, and Gary Lee, our pitching coach, we started implementing all these things and they started to make a difference. So yeah, in 2019, we turned it around. We had a pretty good team. The real tragedy was last year because we were actually loaded. We were a better team overall last year, in my opinion, than we were this year. We had some higher end talent. Our shortstop ended up going to William & Mary to play there. We have a right fielder that went to a JUCO, and he's really, really good. We had a legitimate 8 or 9 guys who hit the ball out of the yard at any time. And actually the Division II, the UNC Pembroke commit, Ethan Ott, last year, we played one game. He hit 3 jacks in one game and a double. He was 4 for 4 with like 9 RBI.
Wow.
In just the very first game. So, last year was, I think that you could see things starting to fall into place. And then we lost some of that talent, but guys like James McGrady, our shortstop that's going to Western Carolina, he filled in. He was our second baseman last year, came over to shortstop, and the most, I think he made maybe 3 errors all year and was our closer. We didn't really use him the year before pitching wise, but he was touching 86. I think he popped 89 once.
Nice.
But was 85, 86 quite a few times on the bump for us. That really, really, we could bring him in and shut somebody down, which was awesome. And that's what he did in the championship. He came in and he threw 6 innings of relief and was just a bulldog out there. But I think, to answer your question in a long-winded way, yeah, we saw those pieces falling into place. And the great thing is now, with what we have in-house, we can see it if we do our jobs, and if our players do their jobs and we can stay healthy, we can see a long-term, going back 3 to 4 years and having, 3 and 4 years of the next 4 years of being able to go and compete for that state championship again. And that's really the tradition of Greenbrier Christian. When we won this past year, that was our 14th state championship. Right. Gary Lavelle, a Major League All-Star, was a Major League All-Star pitcher, was the head coach for a long time. So long-standing tradition. BJ Upton was there. We've had some really high-end guys that have passed through there. So yeah, we're super excited. Still riding the high of winning. It's funny. We talked about a lot of the little things that went throughout the season. And it's just neat for every time. I just went out to a game because we didn't have practice, went to a game last night. 3 of our kids were there and they just looked at me and smiled and like, yep, we did it. We did that. It's something that these guys are going to remember for a long, long time, which is cool.
For sure. For sure. When was the last time Greenbrier did win?
I think it was like 5-6 years ago.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I mean, it's been a while. So I think they made it. I think 2018 when I came was the first losing season in a long time. Or right before I came was the first losing season in a long time. I'm sorry, that was a state semifinals. The year before that was under 500. The year before that, I think they made it to the state finals. So it's been 6 years maybe since they won. I think they won before that in like 2016.
There's definitely a tradition because I'm just thinking,
big tradition,
yeah. Because one of the hardest things is to keep it up. To keep
absolutely.
It going. It's like everybody can, catch lightning in a bottle and have a good season, but it's a matter of just putting the season together. And so what do you feel like the challenges will be moving forward?
Since so many people stepped up this year, it was funny, right? As we got finished celebrating, we had the dog pile and stuff like that. I pulled all the young guys aside, all the freshmen, and I pulled them aside and I just said, hey, listen, it's your turn. You don't have the older guys. They've taught you everything you need to know this year. And the best part was they looked at me and smiled and they're like, Coach, we got it. We got it. And then they said, hey, let's take a picture so we can remember this when it's our turn. So it was really, really cool to see them embrace that. Already got texts that, guys are out at the field taking ground balls still and hitting and stuff like that. So, being able to continue to develop talent and to continue to push that mentality of winning at everything, whether it's, we've even encouraged it to pour over into the classroom. Who can have the best day? Who can be the best student? Who can be the nicest kid? Who can go and encourage the most people during the day? For us, trying to develop them on and off the field is hugely important. So we're getting them to now win in the classroom, which they're good students. I mean, it's a private school. You're paying good money to go there. Your parents aren't going to let you go there and be off on the classroom, but we're trying to build. Oh, hold on. Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry about that. I just got a call that came in. We're trying to build something bigger than just baseball. We want to be, we want our people to be excellent in everything they do. So they're carrying that win at everything. And I think that's going to be a challenge going forward because that encompasses a lot, right? That encompasses, being great from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed, and going to bed on time. I mean, all those little things in between. So I think that, one of our biggest challenges is just going to be to keep that rolling now that we have that momentum of a state championship ring. Everybody's shooting for us and it's, everybody hears us talking about it. So, we just got to go out and try to do it better than everybody else.
Yeah. Cause I just think people talk about creating a culture, and starting it. There's not too much of here's how you maintain it, here's how you continue to grow it. I think it's such a challenge of the consistency, and to be able to do that and hit the reset button, or not necessarily reset button, is just continue to challenge. And like you said, you're trying to compete in the classroom. You continue to try to make yourselves better. But yeah, I think it's something that's, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, and we're going to lose, you lose pieces of that. And, you mentioned hitting the reset button, and that's what we have to do. I mean, great. Let's celebrate. Let's enjoy a little bit, but time to get back to work, time to focus and find the new guy that's going to step up. Is it going to be a guy that's in line already, or is it going to be another guy? Is it going to be a guy maybe coming up from our JV team that didn't see the field on varsity this year? We want to find out who that is and who's going to step up and make the big play when they need to. Mm-hmm. We tell our guys all the time, we don't need you to be great. We need you to do your job. We think our scheme and our system works pretty well. We don't need somebody to go hit a 5-run jack. We need you to get on base. If you're one of our, you're one of our table setters, then it's your job to be a pest and get on base and read dirt balls and get good leads and draw throws and all of that stuff that matters so much. but it doesn't show up in this, doesn't show up in the scorebook. We need that guy. We need the guy that's going to drive in runs. All of that, it takes a lot of hard work, and it's finding the guys who are going to put in that hard work and who are going to embrace exactly what we ask them to do.
Mm-hmm. So just a couple of things. Like, I'm just a couple of things I want to unpack, man. Like, will you give, so just, I guess for everyone, just a little background, like you guys will have a fall wall season.
Yes, we will.
Right, as a program. And then will you make cuts in the fall? Do you do that? Or you basically have your team already set in the fall, or do you wait till the spring? How does all that work?
So Greenbrier is a very small school.
Okay.
The senior class was like 25 kids overall. Wow. So yeah, we don't.
They all play in the baseball team.
Yeah, right. I think we have 4 seniors this year. We had some that decided they wanted to go in another direction. And that was another part of the uniqueness of this season. Is one of the guys was probably going to be our starting center fielder. Another one's going to probably be our starting second baseman. And they decided they want to enjoy the last part of their senior year. They weren't going to college to play baseball. So they decided to do something else. So for us, we really don't cut kids. We just don't have enough bodies out there to be able to do that. So, we're kind of creative sometimes with JV. We may have a kid who's on a varsity roster or who is kind of on our taxi squad, kind of goes between varsity and JV. Maybe he dresses for varsity, but he plays for JV. We practice all together. So we bring our varsity and our JV together so that we're all speaking the same language. They know our cutoff system. They know our communication on ground balls and fly balls. They know our priority system. We typically do our individual defense and our team defense together, and then we'll split off hitting wise, just simply because my arm or one of the other coaches' arms will probably fall off by throwing to 45 kids in BP groups. But, we typically don't have a lot of numbers. I think varsity this year, we typically keep around 18 on varsity. And JV this year was the first time. Last year during COVID, I think we had like 9 or 11 kids or something like that. Year before that, I think we had 12. We actually had some of the younger guys that would have to go down with JV just simply so they had enough bodies. But once they get to varsity, as long as they're the ones putting in the work, then we haven't cut a guy since I've been here.
Yeah.
And I know Greenbrier doesn't want us to. But again, we don't get the big numbers. It's not like we got 30 guys trying out for varsity.
Well, the reason why I'm asking too is thinking about when you're having these conversations about doing your job, and which is basically saying, here's your role. And so are those conversations already starting to happen in the fall is what I'm saying, basically kind of getting at. Having those conversations, talking about your role, and, how do you guys kind of make that happen?
We talk to them a lot about where you are, you are and matching up. We do have an end of the fall meeting where I send out a survey. We send out a survey that says, hey, kind of what do you want your role to be? Where do you think your role is right now? How are you doing in that role, and what do you need to do to get to where you want to be? You want to be the starting shortstop? Cool. Well, tell me what you're doing to make that happen. Not just, are you hitting in the fall? We obviously keep that data, but you're not able to make the one-handed lane play. What are you doing to get better at it? What are you doing to earn that? We have those discussions with them all the time to make sure that the proper expectations are set. We do a lot of communication with the players, especially in the fall. This past year we had to get creative. We literally broke it up by grade. This year we'll break it up a little bit more, probably based on, where we're eyeballing kids for varsity or JV and things like that. And, but no, we make them compete during practice in order to make a certain roster. Even in the fall, we're constantly pushing that competition to get kids. We had some kids. We have a kid down on JVs. Just saw the other day. he's an eighth grader. Yeah, he's an eighth grader. Was just hitting 83 in his bullpen or in his game that he played with his travel team. So, I mean, we've got some talent down there, and, that certainly would have helped us this year, but he's got to learn how to compete, the way we need him to. And he knows that. So
sure. What kind of, let's get into a little bit of that. So what are some of the Greenbrier ways of competing? Like, what do you like to do?
So, I mean, again, working with my position group, the infielders, I'm not a big flashy guy. I just want you making plays. So, are you outworking the guys around you? When you're getting your reps, are you dialed in? Are you, I'm not necessarily as concerned with, making errors during reps and stuff like that, because I want them to push the envelope. I want them moving faster. Because if I can figure out what their max speed is, then we can, coach that or dial that back as needed. But, with our shortstops, for example, are they leading? Are they the ones that are being talkative? Are they the ones that are, really, really focused on their reps? Are they teaching? Hey, I saw you do this. I mean, I'm okay. I told our young second baseman this year, I made sure he threw with our starting shortstop, who was a senior, in their pregame throws, and getting loose, our movement prep every day. I had them specifically throw together because I knew they'd hold each other accountable. He's a younger guy. He's not afraid to talk a little bit, and was, if they weren't getting after it the right way, they would let each other know. Sometimes it was friendly. Sometimes they did get after each other. We talk about being a family all the time. So, sometimes family members don't necessarily get along. They might get after each other a little bit, and that's okay.
Right.
As long as they're doing it the right way. And we do chart ground balls. I took that from Chuck Box, and, looking at defensive efficiencies and making sure, if we have a guy who's not making the on the run play because it's a throwing error, then we work on that. We focus on that. So each player might have a little bit of a different developmental plan for that week or for that practice. But for the most part, I need my middle guys. I need my infield guys to be playing with a little bit of pace, a little bit of energy. And if they're not, then, it's that, to me, that's not competing. There's something else going on. I got to figure out what it is and how we can get them back up to speed. But, those are just some of the things. I mean, a small handful of things that we're looking at.
Sure. And then I just, like I said, I love your perspective of these things, and you've been doing it a long time. So I think you give some great. When I say a long time,
I'm old, buddy.
Yeah. So it's just like you've got great experience.
That's good.
But it's good because you've seen such, and I would just love to hear your perspective of trying to compete and putting that hat on, and what you do and how you hold those expectations, and what those are like in the summer. When you do change hats. And you put your cane hat on, you put the C hat on, and besides your gator hat, just love to hear your perspective on there, because I know you have your standards. You want guys to compete their tail off and do things the right way.
Yeah. So it's funny. I was thinking about that in reflecting after the state championship, looking at just, all right, now transition over to the Canes. Well, to me, nothing's different. I was very, very fortunate. Some of the guys I played with, some of the coaches I played with, played for Townie Townsend, who has really kind of started AAU baseball around here in this area, started travel baseball in this area, made it really popular. Matt Sinnen, he's a legend around here in the Virginia Beach area. When I went to school, I played for Pat McMahon at ODU, who's a Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah.
To me, the standard is the standard. That's what it takes. And I view my role with the Canes in the same way, in the same light. I think I've always coached our Canes kids hard. It's not, it's the summer, it's nice and easy. We're playing at a small high school field. Nobody's going to care. Who cares if, you boot a ball? Or that's not right, man. That's not how you play the game. my coaches never allowed me to back off. They instilled that in me, that passion and that fire and that drive to be great, no matter, if somebody's watching or somebody's not watching. So, my Canes kids, they know that the same expectations exist. I mean, again, we talk about family on the Canes. I mean, that's something that I've pushed in every Canes team that I've coached. I've pushed it throughout our organization, and we've embraced that. And, people talk about how, high school is different than summer, and we just don't believe so. I don't believe so. And I'm it's funny because I've had college coaches say, you know what, I wish more people coached kids hard during the summer like you do. Mm-hmm. And that's not a reflection on me. That's not me tooting my own horn. It's the fact that I think a lot of coaches don't hold kids accountable. They don't hold kids to that standard. First of all, they don't establish what that standard is. But right. Secondly, they don't hold them to that. So, you see a kid hit a ball back to the pitcher and he dogs it. You can't really get mad at him if you didn't explain it to him beforehand and lay out what your expectations are. So my kids know that if they do that, then they're probably going to get pulled aside and they're going to hear it from me.
Sure.
So to me, it doesn't matter, which jersey I'm wearing, whether it's a Greenbrier Christian Academy Gators or whether it's a Canes jersey. The standard is the standard. I mean, there's one way to play the game. It's all out. It's hard. And, I just, that's the way I take it, when we're out there during the summer.
Love it.
I love seeing you nod your head because
like you're almost getting ready to jump off my chair. Like I'm getting ready to jump off. I'm like, thank the Lord. Someone is saying this, like accountability, like this is great. This is great, and so I was like, I knew it. Great. So I'm like, just let us know. Preach to us, coach. Preach to us, man. Like that's what I want. That's exactly what it was about, So, dude, that was great, man. But it's good stuff, buddy. How is it like? I don't know, man. I'm just trying to. Just again, I think you said you got just a good perspective on all of that, with what you're doing at Greenbrier, and you see high school, and then you see the travel stuff, and you see it at the highest levels. You've been at the highest level here in high school, and you're seeing it in travel. So, like, when you talked about culture, and what you've done with culture, and kind of the things you learned at Greenbrier, how is that, and like you said, you've kind of came into every Canes team you've coached and trying to create, really, that's culture, with the standards that you're setting, right? And so, like, what are the challenges there, man? Like when you have high school versus what the culture that you have when it's almost every year,
Yeah, I mean, you have to reestablish the boundaries, right? I mean, kids, whether they want to tell you or want to say it or not, they need boundaries. They need to know what their operating instructions are. So they need to know what their marching orders are. They need to know what they can do to get to that next level. Now, with Greenbrier, it could be a kid who's just going to college. Well, not playing baseball, no interest in playing baseball in college. I still want him to wake up and win because he's got to get up for class. He's got to go to class. He's got to pay attention in class, and he's got to do well. When you get with the Canes, I'm very fortunate that I work with some very high level kids there. And they do have aspirations to play in college. They do want to, go play pro ball. And the winning is just, you just have to get that ingrained into their system of understanding that this is what it takes. I have a couple of my kids, and I'm coaching 14U this year with the Canes and 14 National, great kids. I mean, I have a couple of these kids that send me videos all the time asking me my input. And those kids are really have embraced all the things that we've said, and they're starting to have really high level and intelligent discussions. Those kids are getting it. Those kids are getting it at a very early age. And I'm just very fortunate that I can teach them stuff that I learned in college, from a Hall of Famer, from a college baseball Hall of Fame coach, I'm able to impart that information onto them. I'm able to give them that information. They're able to implement it at 14 when I wasn't doing it at 20 and 21.
Mm-hmm.
So, I love that because it's able to speed up their progression. It's able to, it's enabling them to get better at an earlier age and hopefully put them at a spot where they can play pro baseball or go to college and contribute earlier. So, I think each year you do have to hit the reset button, but it's almost the same conversation. You're just finding different ways to say it, and I think that's what separates good coaches is really how they communicate things, because I can say something one way and it may fall on deaf ears, and I've got to find another way to go and connect with those that didn't. So for me, I'm constantly trying to find better ways to say stuff so that it doesn't, just go in one ear and out the other. I'm trying to get it to really sink in.
You're writing on my notes, man. Like, you give me a lot of notes here, Rob. I appreciate that. So, because and what I was thinking about there was, because honestly, like, I think this is a great conversation because I was at my son's Little League game, and the guy working the cassette stand said, "Hey, I love Tom Marcus' podcast." I'm like, man, like that's awesome. Like, and he's an all-star. He's gonna be the all-star team coach. This is great. So, like, Rob, like, and the reason I think it's great because youth league coaches, it's every year too. I think we get wrapped up in this travel ball, like, not even like Little League, it's every year. You're just got to build this. But I think what you said, number one, set a standard. But then, like you said, I think the number two hard thing is hold the standard. When he hits a ball back to the pitcher and he doesn't do what you want to do, what do we do then?
Yeah. So young me, that happened. Young me, that happened at UNC years and years ago.
I think you told me this story. This is a great story.
Absolutely blew my player up. That was young me. That was awful. It was terrible. I was an awful coach for doing it, but I lit him up so hard that Coach Fox heard it in his booth, in his suite, and I heard about it a little bit later. So, the hardest thing to do is hold people accountable.
Yeah,
because it's a difficult conversation. It's not easy to tell a kid he's not meeting the standard. But the funny thing is, almost every single time they know that what they did was unacceptable. Had a kid this year that happened to, and I made him do a couple of things. So he was embarrassed. I didn't embarrass him on the field like old me would have. But I pulled him aside and we talked. And the hardest thing for him to do was to look me in the eyes. Mm-hmm. And I talked for a little while and I said, whoa, time out. You're going to look me in the eyes when I'm saying this, and I saw the look in his eyes that, oh my gosh, I know I screwed up. I know, that's not what we do. And I only have to have that conversation typically once, right? I mean, they remember those things and it becomes that. And to me, that's the most rewarding stuff, even though it's hard to do, it is because I know that's not going to happen to him again. I know that's not going to ever, as long as he's playing baseball, probably even when he's done playing baseball and he has a job, he will not mail it in. And to me, that's super rewarding. Like, to know that I have had that sort of impact on him. And I made him say, okay, here's what I did. Here's what I should have done. Here's what I'll do next time. And I try to take all the things that I've learned in business and baseball over the years and bowl them up and kind of present them to the kids. And he came to me the next day and he looked at me and goes, it was because we had practice the next day. He didn't run it out during the game. He came to me next day during stretching and he goes, Coach, I just want to tell you I love you.
Awesome.
And those types of things make everything worth it to me. The kid's very talented. He's going to end up going to play somewhere. probably pretty big. And that was his word to me the next day was, "Hey, coach, I just want to tell you I love you."
Mm-hmm.
After I just very gently, the newer Rob,
The wise
had
Rob.
a difficult conversation with him. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a tough conversation, but
Yeah.
he appreciated it. It's that to me is rewarding. And I think that's one of the reasons why we had a successful year is because our coaching staff does that.
Awesome. Love it, buddy. Speaking of, like, you just talk about this guy, like, he's going to go somewhere. You've been around a lot of really talented guys. Just thinking in terms of recruiting and how you've seen recruiting change in the last, 20 years or so, and especially with your time with the Canes and as well as your time with high school. Like, how have you seen those kind of things change, or maybe put to bed some things that you think you might have heard that you think are wrong, or just what are your thoughts here?
That's a great question because, it's changed a lot, especially, obviously dealing with pandemic. That's been crazy because coaches not able to get off campus and stuff like that. I talked to, quite a few coaches because, dealing with some pretty talented kids. And, one of the things that hasn't changed is that the coaches want to see them. Certainly a recommendation goes a long way from people that they trust. But at the end of the day, the coaches, and rightfully so, need to get eyeballs on kids. Now, I think that's happening in a lot of different ways now. And I think that the one thing that we're seeing is that the rise in the value of college camps. Certainly prospects can't go to every single college, but you're seeing in the past couple of years and prior to the pandemic, you're seeing more kids offered from camps, at least, that I've seen, and that's kind of late. That's been the final check mark, I guess. They've seen them for X amount of at-bats and X amount of games, and they want to get them on campus and certainly, see them for themselves as well as put them in front of the head coach and stuff like that. I get it. But that's been one of the biggest ones. I think there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more coaches that think that they can influence that process more. Travel coaches and not necessarily high school coaches, but really travel coaches that think they can influence that process more. And, I've heard in talking to kids that are, considering playing for our organization, there are coaches out there that are saying, "Hey, I'll get you recruited," or "I'll get you a visit or a scholarship from this, university." That is 100% false. Like, I don't get kids recruited. I've done this for a long time. The player themselves gets themselves recruited. It is not the coaches that really do anything there other than if they have a good reputation to be able to give an honest assessment. I think far too many parents and players are, I think I saw a quote from Deion Sanders, which I thought was really, really good. There's too many people chasing scholarships. Stop chasing scholarships and start chasing greatness. And I just sat there. I was like, wow, that's really, really good. And I think that's something that's happened of late, at least in baseball, is that you have new coaches that are coming in saying, "Oh, I can get you a scholarship. Right. Or I can get you talking to this guy or that guy." And yeah, they can, you might be able to get them to have a conversation, but at the end of the day, as a player, you've still got to be really good. Like, at the end of the day, you've got to play the game the right way. You've got to play hard. You've got to have talent. You've got to fit their scheme. You've got to do a lot of things really well. So you can talk to everybody you want, but at the end of the day, you've just got to be a good player. And I think, I know travel ball gets a lot of black eyes, a lot of punches to the nose. But a lot of those guys, come and go, and guys like you, stay in it and get in it and stay in it and do it for the right reasons. And those are the guys I think that have longevity in it and really truly end up helping the kids.
Mm-hmm. I think you hit on the head too, is about, you can give an honest, reputable recommendation, where it's also like, look, I'm not going to put my name on the line too, because you don't play the game the right way, or you don't hold the standard. This coach I'm not going to put my name out there.
My obligation is to tell the truth.
Correct.
I mean, honestly,
so the biggest things I'm telling people, like, I'm just going to give you honest feedback and say, like, here's where you are at. You might not play shortstop here. Like, I'm just going to be able to give you that where you can say, oh, now I'm going to figure it out my junior. No, I'm going to help you figure it out now.
Right.
To be honest with you, like,
I'd rather you figure it out now. Right.
There's no disrespect. It's not my much. I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying you might not play a shortstop. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I mean, that's kind of what we do. That's what we do at Greenbrier as well. We have a kid who's come in.
High school's always like the first guy in line. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we've got a kid who's going to be good.
Yeah.
He's really, really slow. I love him. I moved him to third base. I said, you're not allowed to take ground balls at short. Why not? Because you're not going to play there for me. Until you get faster, until you can move better, you're not going to play there. So let's go put you in a place where you're going to be successful at third base. And let's get you very good over there. Not saying you can't go work on your own. You can improve that. But my assessment based off what I've done over, the last several thousand years, it seems like, is try to put kids in spots to be successful. And I'm not going to push, a kid to a top 5, top 10 school if he doesn't have that talent. I'm not going to give him, my opinion is going to be my opinion, and it's going to be as honest and as brutal. And I wouldn't say something to the college coach that I wouldn't say to the kid and his parents. And then I probably haven't said to them. So, to me, I've just seen so many cycles of people, thinking they can come in and, be an influence in the game. And then, within a couple of years from them, making absurd claims and stuff like that, they're gone and they're doing something else, could be in basketball or another sport. But for me, I love the game, and I feel the need and the burden to be able to try to leave it better than the way I found it. And that includes players, that includes college coaches, that includes pro scouts. I just feel that burden to do that. So everybody's going to get my honest opinion.
So Rob,
I'm old. I'm old. So it's
Rob,
like,
it's just a lot of experience, Rob. I don't know. It's just a lot of experience. So like, dude, I just got to think, you talk about you talk about standards, right? You're talking standards a lot tonight. It's awesome. So my question is, like, it just got me thinking. I was just thinking, has this always been, Rob? Like, has this always been Coach Younce? Was there a time that you just like, man, this is not working, and you had to switch it?
Yeah, it probably comes back to my playing days when I thought I was better than I really was. I had high standards. I mean, I've been, again, being very fortunate to play for really good coaches. I'll never forget this. So we at Old Dominion, we were sponsored by Easton, and this will date me a little bit more. We got the first batch of C-Core bats that came out. Not Z-Core, but C-Core.
I love it. There's like graphite in the middle.
Yeah.
Man, they were great.
So we were hitting in the cage early one day. I remember this very vividly. It was hitting Kevin Gibbs, who ended up playing with the Dodgers and the Yankees organizations. And Gibby was a freshman All-American. He was phenomenal. Great player. Awesome dude. Probably nicest dude you'll ever meet. So we're taking BP. Coach Mack comes walking by. He was just in one of the buildings and came walking by. He goes, "Hey, boys, how's it going?" I'm like, "Hey, Coach, going great." And he said, he goes, "How do you guys like those bats?" I was like, "Man, this thing's got a lot of pop." And Coach Mack looked me dead in my eyes and said, "Younce, you don't know what pop is." And it deflated me. And then he started laughing. He goes, "I'm kidding." But being around those guys, like Coach Mack had standards. I mean, it was ingrained in us if you didn't come to the field clean shaven, we had a rusty razor that sat in the locker room that you had to go shave with. I mean, those standards for all my playing career existed. How I presented them, now to answer your point, has it changed over the years? How I presented them and how I enforced them, I guess, is, for lack of a better word, how I handle those standards with the players has changed over the years. But those standards have always existed to me. I mean, I just, the guys that I've been around, it's just, this is how you play the game.
Fair enough. Sounds good. Yeah, it's just I think just the accountability piece of this, like tugging a guy to the side rather than just showing him up on the field. And
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
I was legendary for that. I was awful. What a bad coach. Just learning, and because honestly, coming from that era, that's kind of what happened. I mean, again, people I was around, Mark Newman, recently passed away. Was the head coach at ODU. I was the bat boy when I was a kid, and I was around him, and he would legendarily rip into people. That's just how it was back then. Well, obviously, things have changed, and you either progress or you fall off the map, so to speak. So, as I learned a little bit more and became a little bit more mature and a father and all that good stuff, I had to handle things a little bit better.
Sure, you adapt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good coaches adapt, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, great stuff, buddy. Good stuff, man. So like, dude, just thinking about some details, man, like getting some details, like things that you love to do with your infielders.
Oh man. We've started doing in the past year, a lot more one-handed work.
Okay. And does that come from like the charting the balls? Like, did you get to see that this year through you charting ground balls that you rarely catch the two-hander?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, once you start really looking at what the plays are, we were making significantly more plays one-handed. And when I told our kids this over the winter that we were going to do a lot more one-handed work after I charted everything in the fall, they looked at me like I had three heads. It was it was hilarious. As I started explaining to them why, they started looking at things and like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. So, we've done a lot of things like that. We've worked on, even our third baseman working on being able to drop step more. We were a little bit more aggressive in our angles, but having a guy over there who's got a really good arm, a lot more drop stepping, especially on balls right at us to get a little bit better of a read. Little things like that. We worked on a lot more double play, footwork and feeds this year. And we fielded at a very high level. I think we were like a 950 team. We did really well. So it was interesting to see how all of that ended up playing out through the year. Now we're going to adjust some things, going forward. And I think will continue to help us evolve and become better defenders. But yeah, charting it really, really helped.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can tell you literally. So now I just chart my son right now, just helping him out, just looking at him right now. And it's even at 10 years old, majority of his plays are one-handed, and majority of the plays he's playing second base, and a lot of them are to his left. Like, it's like they're like, and that's where they and it's funny. You just see them. And just when it comes down to them, like, this is why, but like, so there's a question then. Cause like you've coached some lower levels, and, I help those, the young guys out, and it's just like, and I always fight of like, is it developmental that we just need to teach a kid to kind of play the ball? Cause like that's the template. It's like charge the ball, like, and the kids know that I'm like, well, whoa. Like, you just charged a rocket that if you just take one step back, you're going to catch it right here. Like, you just made that play 10 times harder. So like, you wonder, when is it appropriate to teach a kid to drop step? When is it appropriate to say, it's okay that this hand's not alligator all the time.
Right. Right. Yeah. So one of the most fun years that I had was actually teaching or coaching, the youth leagues, the young youth leagues. And I started out, with a team and brought them up, all the way through so we started out at Virginia Wesleyan. Back then it was Virginia Wesleyan College, but we just got, my stepson at the time was 8 years old. We went and got kids that were good kids and good parents, and we formed a team, and we started practicing out there. Once I started seeing my infielders we started working on reading hops. So they would have ground balls hit to them, and we'd point out where the last hop would be. So once they started understanding, hey, I want to get a big hop, I remember teaching our kids a drop step at like 11. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason I didn't teach it sooner is because they just didn't have the arm sometimes. I think that's one of the things that really will allow a kid to be able to do a drop step. What we worked on more was still being aggressive going towards the ball, but controlling that aggression so that we still got a good hop. Like we didn't
Mm-hmm.
run into a bad hop.
Right.
One of the things it's funny you say that, because even this year we worked with our shortstop. He was closing his glove a little bit on one-handed plays, and it would cause a bobble at times. So we just worked, after charting it and seeing it, we would take a different angle and go watch him take ground balls and start seeing different things happen. Like he was fielding it like this,
Mm-hmm.
like his palm wasn't fully open and he wasn't going through it. He was fielding it and kind of snatching it out of his glove. So, we taught him to when he goes through that, go through it the right way. We taught him how to, drop step a little bit more because he's got a really good arm. So, I mean, I think once they show the footwork and once they show I guess just the general awareness to be able to get a good hop. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I got to teach them also how to get a good hop. Sometimes it's being very aggressive and going to get it. Other times it's maybe taking that drop step.
So how to get the right hop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, because it's just good. But yeah, it's
fun coaching those little guys, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It can be rewarding. They're just, and they just want to. Most of them just want to learn. And some of them look at you with deer in the headlights, like, "What on earth are you talking to me?"
Yeah.
I mean, but that's all part of it. It's just all part of coaching. Where, like you said, you got to learn how to say it multiple ways to be able to kind of get it and be like, okay, well, just go take three and go get it that ball. And then this ball, like my son's very kind of technical and, like, so he gets it, like we do the lanes 1, 2, 3, like 33 ball. Like we can be technical and he likes that. But like other guys on the team, like, no, like, okay.
Yeah. You have other kids where it looks like you're speaking Chinese to them, right?
So like you just got to do it multiple ways and this and that, and you repeat certain things. But it is, but I find it, where if you can break it down with the younger guys and younger levels, because that's what camp was always good about too. Camp, if you can break it down into camp, and that's going to help you with the older guys when they can get it, and you can, I think instilling the fundamentals, but just the communication piece is really
can
really be enhanced.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
For sure, buddy. For sure, man. Oh man, good. So like you touched base about infield. Dude, like I'm just thinking of like, could you talk about charting? Like I'd like you to put your other hat on now. Like, will you influence any kind of thing about charting a thing like that when it comes to the summer, when it comes to the cane stuff? Like, will you incorporate any kind of those kind of things to kind of say, hey, here's what, will you chart any of those things? Will you kind of put any of those kind of developmental things in there like that with your guys?
Absolutely. Yeah. So with the canes, kind of similarly, I'm in, I handle the hitters and I handle the infielders. I'll have an offensive chart and I'll have my defensive efficiency chart. And I discuss with the guys, what that means, from an infielder standpoint. We do practice. So, I will be charting that during practices. We've had several this year where I've already been charting, and I know, who's better going to their left, who's better going to their right, who's better right at them, who's better, one-handed, who's better in a 4-step pattern, things like that. I mean, I've got a very good idea for my infielders already, where that stands. So, I'll do the same thing for the hitters. For the hitters, I chart who chases in the zone, who chases, who attacks inside the zone, who chases out of the zone. We look at squaring balls up. I try not to get too technical with them. I just want them squaring up and squaring up baseballs and being productive in their outs. We work a lot of situational stuff, not only at Greenbrier, but at the Canes. And, we need to be very good at that. So, we discuss that all the time in BP. I stay in the dugout. because I talk to hitters. So instead of coaching a base, I'm usually in the dugout. We're going over tendencies with the pitcher. We're going over, stuff on base, what to look for as far as steals go and the running game. We found that's just a good recipe for us with the Canes. Dan Gitson's in there with me, and we got our coaches out there coaching the bases, but I typically stay in the dugout so I can review that stuff with them. And same thing, I coached first base for Greenbrier this past year, but I did a lot of the similar stuff. I had one of our pitchers keeping the charts on the offensive stuff, and I kept my base running notes and stuff like that, so we knew tendencies and stuff like that. But with the Canes, it's we do the same stuff, man. It's really no different. I think the signs are different. Well, I know the signs are different because Dan has a different set of signs, but the way that I run the offense and the way that I run the infielders is the exact same.
Yeah. The standard's a standard.
Yeah, and I know that sounds cliche and that sounds boring, but that's really it. I mean, it takes what it takes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then, but even the case is, because I think kids coming from all different types of programs, some's will never possibly be introduced to something like that to even see like, hey, that I didn't know that about my game, or
Right.
they're maybe left alone because they're one of the better kids, and maybe that people aren't used to pushing them because some people have a hard time. I remember Butch talking about people just sometimes have a hard time coaching good players.
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not.
It really
is. Certainly isn't. It certainly isn't. So I think you're doing them a good service. So keeping the standard.
Well, they come to us. They come play for us and other teams because they expect to get better. And I feel an obligation. I feel like I'd be doing them a disservice if I just kind of slapped little Johnny on the back and said, "Hey, go get him." For 70 at bats or 80 at bats, whatever, however many 100 at bats a year, and me not coach him through me not coach him. I mean, I just feel that we're doing the game a disservice. You see a lot of the pro guys or ex-pros are talking about how bad the game is now and things like that. And I want these group of players to be the ones that change that opinion. I want these guys to be the ones that say, "Hey, I'm going to be productive in my at bats. I'm going to, I'm not going to chase high enough, even though I know it's hard at the major league level when the guys throw 100 miles an hour up in the zone. I want my guys to have a right, the approach. I want our guys to be able to drive fastballs in the zone. This for some of the guys, it's the first time they've heard it. We have some guys that are at IMG already and they hear this all the time. But again, we want them to compete to the standard. And if that's, they want to go play college baseball, that's going to be the standard.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You want to go to a good program. Well, you better be ready, really be ready to get coached.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Just again, helping that transition, like you said earlier about the progression, to like where they can get to it earlier than what you did at 21. That's what we're trying to do here,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But I think also you're trying to do, that's for me, like, I'm just trying to bring value,
Sure.
like it's what it came down to. Like, I'm going to try to exceed my value to what you're whatever. And then not that I control, but that's just how, even for me, like you're going to get coached up hard, cause I'm just trying to show you like, there's a lot of value for what you're getting here.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Agree 100% with that.
For sure, buddy. For sure, man. Dude, great stuff. Love the swing decision stuff too, man. I know, I know Chuck put that, like you talk about Chuck earlier, and I think he put that on his, and that was one thing he shared out earlier this year. I think during COVID was just they added that to that one offensive chart. He had a swing decision chart, which I thought was really good. I had talked to Swope about that, Matt Swope from Maryland, and he got into like some swing decision stuff last year, 2 years ago, and I had touched base with him about that as well. Yeah, I think that's a major part of it. That just like, look, man, there's nothing we can do for your swing if you are going to swing at that pitch up. Like it's just You gotta
Yeah.
stop. You gotta stop doing that. You gotta.
Or
We
chasing
gotta do
breaking
some.
balls out of the zone. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
exactly.
just nothing we can do about it. Like they maybe training the eyes better, make sure you're seeing it. Like I've talked to guys about hard focus, soft focus. Like then it's a matter but at least once we can know that you're swinging at the right things, okay, then we're gonna start maybe dive into some other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that should be number one, man. Like it should be definitely top. Like, are you swinging at things you should be? And then we'll go from there. That's kind of like the approach, what you were kind of talking about.
Sure.
There,
Well, it's interesting. Even, again, in the summertime, it's a little different because, everybody comes from different backgrounds. Everybody comes from different coaching. But you have several, kids that we're just talking about an approach, and some of these kids have never heard anything about it. It's like a mythical beast that they've, oh yeah, I heard somebody talk about approach. Great. What's yours? Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about your swing. If you're going well, where are you hitting the ball? If, how do we get you out? And, some kids look at you with, I have absolutely no idea what you just said.
Yeah.
So then we've got to make them a little bit more aware of that and help understand that and bring some competence and some awareness to it. And other kids can tell you what their swing should look like. We'll talk them through, okay, well, what does your load look like? Where do you want to be? How do you want to get through the baseball? So, being able to have those discussions is actually pretty cool. It's fun to me because it's kind of like you mentioned the reset button. Well, it's a reset button every year because I get new kids.
Yeah.
During the summer, I have a whole new crop of kids. And the cool thing is if you have a good impact on them and again, they embrace the family part and they view you as somebody who has provided them with value. You've helped them with their swing. You've helped them with their, their mental process. You stay in touch with them. They're the kind that go on to pro ball and they're still texting you saying, hey, I'm changing my load from this to a wrist cock. What do you think? Because here's why, and here's what I found. It's actually pretty cool. You're actually creating students for life, and these kids are still relying on you. Now when their job is to play baseball, they're still calling you and texting you and sending you their swing going, hey, what do you think? So, having that conversation really early with them, being at the 14U age is pretty cool. And having a new crop each year that comes through and I get to start all over and keep working with them it's a lot of fun, man.
Cool. Yeah, for sure, man. It's always nice to work with just the committed kids, kids
Right.
that are just fully committed. I mean, you wear your high school hat too. And like you said, and that's us part of it. Like we're still holding the standard because even if you don't go to play baseball or not, like you need to go to class or you're going to go get a job, like whatever the case is, let's be better people here, and, but it's certainly nice to coach with people that are sending you videos, trying to get better. They're fully committed with that. It's definitely very valuable. Something.
Yeah, guys, are doing work when they're not, when they're not under your nose. I mean, that's nice to know, right?
Like I was just giving some honest feedback to some kids about speed, and then 2 days later, I get them running hills, and I'm like, this is it, man. Like this is it.
Yeah.
Like I'm all in. Like I'll meet you 150%. You give me that. Like
absolutely.
Like you're gonna get everything and more of me. With that kind of stuff, man. I love it.
Yeah, I agree.
But man, dude, we've been here over an hour, Betty.
Wow.
Yeah, rocking it.
It was quick.
Yeah. So like, I guess I just want to say, like, man, is there anything you want to send, like things you just want to kind of put out there? Any kind of advice that you might have for players, coaches, anything you want to kind of leave us with?
I think at the end of the day, you need to be you. I mean, certainly you're as we mentioned, you're going to be evolving. I'm definitely not a finished product. I'm reading, I'm going to conventions. I'm trying to learn. I'm talking to great baseball guys like you, and just trying to find one or two things every single conversation that I can learn. Something that I can put in my toolbox to make myself better. And I would encourage everybody out there, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, to be that constant learner, to be looking to be better today. Everybody talks about being 1% better. That's everything, man. That's not just on the field. Figure out who you are, where you, and that's one of the things I tell our kids all the time is that's the hardest thing is to really look in the mirror and give yourself an honest assessment of where you are. I do it all the time. And sometimes it's a tough conversation with myself. But, I think that helps you if you have that perspective, if you have that, that ability to look at yourself and figure out what you need to do better. I just think to me, that's huge. And if you can do that as a player and as a coach, you're going to constantly be better, and you're going to end up where you want to be.
Awesome. I appreciate that, man. That was great stuff. Dude, anybody wants to talk more about you? I know you're very helpful and you just love to talk. What's the best way to get in touch with you, buddy?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on all social media at Rob Younce. You can email me. It's robyounce@gmail. I'm all over social media. I try to stay out there because I learn so much from it.
Yeah.
So please, you can
content.
slide into my DMs. You can at me. It don't matter, man. DMs are wide open. Love, helping kids and just it's what I feel like I should be doing is helping and helping people get better. So whatever I can do to help, man, please feel free to reach out.
Coach Rob Younce, just killing it. Just a great conversation, honestly. Just really enjoyed my time speaking with Coach Younce, and it was great to hear just about his standards. It was great to hear no matter what hat he puts on, those standards don't change. That speaks to just a good person in general. Standards are the standard. We find those standards that we live our life, and we live our life accordingly. And it's just got a lot better tonight, and I just want to thank Coach Younce for that. I want to thank him for taking the time and talking to us, get us behind a curtain with Greenbrier and with Canes and what they do. And they'll dig into a little bit of what he's about. And love to talk kidding, love to talk his infield. And man, boy, I can talk those things all night long. And like we talked about after we were done, we could have sat on there for another hour or so. But it's been a real pleasure talking to him, and just a couple of the great things that I'm not sure if anybody caught, but just the things that really stuck out to me as I've taken my notes and is just, of course, he talked about his standards. I love how he talked about finding multiple ways of saying things to help different types of kids, depending on what they need. Love the survey they do at the end of the fall to discuss what they think their role should be. It really shows like just the maturity of a kid, how realistic, how are they seeing themselves. It's real good. Just all those hard conversations, holding kids accountable. I think he's got to deal with that because they are having standards. So in order to have standards, you have to hold people to a standard. So you got to find ways of doing that, and talk about that. And he was very real about that, just that they're not easy conversations. And he has changed the way he does hold them and enforce them. If you're not charting ground balls like you talked about, you'd be surprised what happens when you chart ground balls and what you see, and then how it changes the way you practice and be more purposeful with it. And in the swing decision chart, I think it's great. Just knowing what people are, I think that's ways of getting into what really matters. But people a lot of times just swinging bad pitches. Mike Trout's really good because he just swings at good pitches. Not just because, but he's really good because he also swings at what he's supposed to hit, and he doesn't swing at what he's not supposed to hit. It's a lot of the trait of a really good hitter. So, and at the end of the day, his last advice, love it. Not a finished product. He's a constant learner. Doesn't have it all figured out. He's a guy that's willing to learn and willing to share everything he's gone through. It's great. So again, follow him at Rob Younce, ROBYOUNCE. DMs are open. Great follow, as well as an email at robyounce@gmail.com. ROBYOUNCE. Rob, man, buddy, thanks a lot. Appreciate the time. And all you guys, thanks for joining us here, sticking with us here at the end. Continue sharing the podcast. Give us feedback. Let us know if there's anybody that you feel is helping grow the game, is helping people on and off the field, and using this game to influence in a positive way. So, until next time, keep getting better.